My brother Richard has everything: a $500 million empire, a mansion in Cleveland's richest neighborhood, and connections that reach the White House. Me, I'm a 58-year-old mechanic with hands that won't stop shaking, fixing beat-up cars for people who can barely afford parts. So when Richard's kidneys started failing and I turned out to be his only match, I should have jumped at the chance to save him, right? Wrong, because 15 years ago Richard paid $500,000 to move my dying wife down the transplant list. She died waiting. Now he's dying, begging for my kidney, and I just discovered our brother Daniel, who we buried 25 years ago, is very much alive and has been planning the perfect revenge. The rain never stopped that day. June 15th, 1999. I stood there in Calvary Cemetery, watching my older brother Richard deliver a eulogy for our youngest brother Daniel. The words coming out of his mouth sounded practiced, polished, perfect, like everything else Richard Morrison did in his life. Daniel was a brilliant young man. Richard's voice carried over the handful of mourners. 27 years old, his whole life ahead of him. This tragic accident has robbed our family of, he paused, just long enough to seem overcome with emotion, of a precious soul. My hands stayed buried in the pockets of my only good suit. The rain drummed against the black umbrella Mary held over both of us. Our kids huddled close. Sarah was only 5 then, Tommy 9, little Emma just 3. They didn't understand why Uncle Daniel, who used to bring them candy every Sunday, was going into the ground. Neither did I, to be honest. The casket looked expensive. Too expensive for a supposed car accident victim. Closed casket, of course, Richard had insisted. Said Daniel's injuries were extensive. The funeral director, a nervous man who kept adjusting his glasses, wouldn't meet my eyes when I'd asked to see my baby brother one last time. Something felt wrong. Had felt wrong since the moment Richard called with the news. As they lowered the mahogany box into the earth, I caught something in my peripheral vision. A figure standing far back among the trees, maybe 50 yards away. Too far to make out clearly in the rain. But something about the way they stood. When I looked again, they were gone. Richard's hand landed on my shoulder as the last shovel of dirt hit the casket. These things happen, Frank. We need to move on. For the family business. I shrugged his hand off. Didn't say anything. What was there to say? Daniel was gone, and Richard seemed more concerned about Morrison Development Corp. Than his own brother's death. That was 25 years ago. I think about that rainy day sometimes, usually when I'm under a car, my back screaming, oil dripping onto my face. Wonder if Daniel would have ended up like me, a 58-year-old mechanic with hands that won't stop shaking, fixing beat-up Hondas for people who can barely afford the parts. Or if he would have ended up like Richard, CEO of a $500 million empire, living in a mansion that costs more than I'll make in 10 lifetimes. The tremor in my left hand started about 6 months ago. Just a little shake at first. Thought it was too much coffee, maybe fatigue from working 14-hour days. But it's gotten worse. Sometimes I have to grip the wrench with both hands just to get a bolt loose. Haven't told anyone. Can't afford to. If word gets out that Frank Morrison can't hold a tool steady, who's going to trust him with their car? The afternoon sun slanted through the garage door, highlighting every oil stain on the concrete floor. I was finishing up Mrs. Chen's '94 Corolla brake job. She'd been putting off for 3 months because money was tight, when Tommy walked in holding an envelope. "Dad, this came for you." He held it out like it might bite him. "It's from Uncle Richard's company." The envelope was cream-colored, heavy stock, the kind that costs more than a meal at McDonald's. Morrison Development Corp's gold-embossed logo caught the light. I wiped my hands on a rag that had seen better days and took it. Inside, an invitation printed on paper so thick it felt like cardboard. Richard Morrison and Morrison Development Corp. cordially invite you to celebrate 30 years of excellence. I didn't finish reading. The invitation made a satisfying rip as I tore it in half, then quarters, then eighths. Tommy watched me, his jaw tight. "You're not going." "Why would I?" I tossed the pieces toward the trash. "Most made it. 30 years of excellence. You know how many times your uncles helped us in those 30 years? 0. Exactly 0 times. Tommy picked up the pieces that had missed the bin. His eyes caught on something on my workbench, an old family photo from 1994. All 4 of us. Dad before the cancer got him, Richard in his first expensive suit, me in my work clothes, and Daniel. God, Daniel looked so young, so alive. "Is that Uncle Daniel?" "Yeah." I turned back to Mrs. Chen's car. "That's him. You never talk about him. Nothing to talk about. He died. End of story." But it wasn't the end of the story, was it? Even after 25 years, something about that day still gnawed at me. The closed casket, the nervous funeral director, that figure in the trees. My phone rang, cutting through the garage's quiet. Unknown Cleveland number. I almost didn't answer, but something, call it intuition, call it 25 years of unfinished business, made me pick up. Frank Morrison? The voice was young, hesitant. Yeah. Who's this? Uncle Frank. It's Michael. Richard's son. Michael? I hadn't heard from my nephew in maybe 5 years. Last time was at some family function Richard had grudgingly invited us to, where we'd stood around like the poor relations we were while Cleveland's elite sipped champagne that cost more than my monthly mortgage. What do you want, Michael? There was a pause. I could hear him breathing, gathering courage, maybe. It's my father. He's sick, Uncle Frank. Really sick. So, man's got the best doctors money can buy. Stage 4 kidney failure. The words came out in a rush. He needs a transplant. Within 3 months, or another pause, or he dies. I set down my wrench, stared at the Corolla's engine. Kidney failure. Richard Morrison. The man who had everything, whose kidneys were giving up on him. There was something almost poetic about it. I'm sorry to hear that, Michael, but I don't see what you're a match. He said it so quietly I almost missed it. We all got tested. Mom, me, even some distant cousins. You're the only one who matches. 94% compatibility. The doctors say, they say you're his last hope. Last hope. The words hung in the air like the smell of motor oil that never quite left my clothes. Richard Morrison's last hope was his younger brother, the one he'd ignored for 30 years, the one whose calls he'd never returned, whose request for help he'd dismissed with a wave of his manicured hand. Uncle Frank, are you there? I'm here. Will you at least come to the hospital? Talk to him? I looked at my shaking hand, thought about Mary dying in a county hospital bed while Richard celebrated another $1 million deal, thought about Sarah having to drop out of her dream school because I couldn't afford tuition, thought about every time I'd swallowed my pride and asked my big brother for help, only to be told that everyone needs to make their own way. Uncle Frank, tell your father, I said slowly, each word deliberate, that I got his message. Then I hung up. Tommy was still standing there, holding the torn invitation pieces. What was that about? Nothing. I picked up the wrench again, ignored the tremor that made it rattle against the engine block. Just Richard needing something, like always. But you said he never helped us. That's right. But now that he needs something, I let the sentence die. Outside, clouds gathered over Akron's skyline. Looked like rain coming. It always seemed to rain when the Morrison family faced its demons. 25 years ago, I'd stood in the rain watching them bury my youngest brother. Now Richard was dying, and somehow, some way, I was supposed to save him. The same brother who'd let everything I loved slip away while he built his empire on the bones of anyone who got in his way. My hand shook as I tightened the last bolt on Mrs. Chen's brakes. But for once I don't think it was from whatever was wrong with my nerves. It was rage, pure, distilled 25-year-old rage. And maybe, just maybe, it was time for Richard Morrison to learn what it felt like to need something desperately and have someone turn their back on you. Just like he'd done to me. Just like he'd done to all of us. 3 days later, I found myself walking through the main entrance of Cleveland Clinic. The place smelled like every hospital I'd ever been in, disinfectant trying to cover up death and desperation. My work boots squeaked against the polished floors. Everyone else seemed to glide past in their expensive shoes, their clean clothes, their lives that hadn't been spent under cars, breathing in 30 years of exhaust fumes. Michael met me at the elevator. Kid looked older than his 25 years, stress carving lines into his face that shouldn't be there yet. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. But his eyes looked just like Daniel's used to. Lost, scared. Thank you for coming, Uncle Frank. Haven't agreed to anything yet. The elevator ride to the 12th floor took forever. VIP ward, of course. Where else would Richard Morrison be dying? Dr. Evelyn Chen was waiting outside Richard's room. Mid-40s, Vietnamese American, with something in her expression I couldn't quite read. When she shook my hand, she held it a second longer than necessary, studying my face like she was looking for something. Mr. Morrison, I'm Dr. Chen, your brother's nephrologist. Her voice had a slight accent, softened by years in America. Thank you for coming. I know this must be complicated. Complicated. That was one word for 30 years of abandonment. Just tell me what you need to tell me. Doc, she pulled up a tablet, showed me charts and numbers that meant nothing to me. Your brother's kidneys are functioning at less than 15%. Without dialysis, he'd be dead within a week. With it, perhaps 3 months, maybe 4 if we're fortunate. But dialysis is not a permanent solution at his age and with his other health factors. Other health factors? High blood pressure, diabetes, years of lifestyle choices. She glanced toward the room where Richard waited. Mr. Morrison, your tissue compatibility with your brother is remarkably high, 94%. In my 20 years doing this, I've rarely seen siblings match this well. Lucky me. She studied me again with that strange look, like she wanted to say something else. Your brother is anxious to speak with you, but I need you to understand something first. This is not a decision to make lightly. Kidney donation is major surgery. There are risks, and given what I've observed, she touched my left hand gently. Have you seen a neurologist about the tremor? I pulled my hand back. It's nothing. Mr. Morrison, it's nothing, I repeated. Harder this time. Can we just get this over with? She nodded slowly, but her eyes stayed concerned. One more thing. I want you to know that whatever decision you make, it should be yours alone. No one can force you to donate an organ, not even family. The way she said it, emphasizing those last words, made me look at her more carefully. There was something there, some understanding that went deeper than medical ethics. Richard's room was exactly what I'd expected. Private suite bigger than my living room, flowers everywhere, a view of Lake Erie that probably added 10 grand to the daily rate. And in the middle of it all, my big brother, hooked up to a dialysis machine that hummed and clicked like some mechanical heart. He looked smaller than I remembered. The great Richard Morrison, reduced to a man in a hospital gown, his skin with that yellowy gray tint that screamed kidney failure. But his eyes were still sharp, still calculating. Frank. He tried to sit up straighter, maintaining whatever dignity he could. You came. Michael said you were dying. Direct as always. He managed a laugh that turned into a cough. Yes, well, it seems my body is finally collecting on all those years of good living. Victoria stood by the window, and damn if she wasn't exactly what I'd expected too. 35 years old, blonde in that expensive way, designer dress even in a hospital room. She was holding her phone at an angle that seemed casual, but I'd been around enough to know when someone was recording. Mrs. Morrison, I nodded at her. Oh, please, call me Victoria. Her smile was all teeth, no warmth. We're family, after all. Family, right. Richard cleared his throat. Frank, I need to ask you something I have no right to ask. Then don't. Please. The word came out strangled, forced, like his throat wasn't designed to shape it. Just listen. I stayed standing, kept my distance. Waited. I need a kidney. Your kidney. The doctors say you're the only match. He swallowed hard, and for the first time in my life, I watched my big brother struggle for words. I know things between us have been non-existent, I supplied. That's the word you're looking for, Richard. Non-existent. Like when Mary was dying and I begged you for help. Like when Sarah needed surgery. Like when we were about to lose the house. Non-existent. Just like you were. I had my reasons. You had your money. That's all you've ever had. Something shifted in his face then. The calculating look got sharper. Victoria moved slightly, adjusting her phone angle. And then Richard Morrison did something I'd never seen him do in 58 years of knowing him. He got out of bed, trailing his IV stand, and dropped to his knees on that expensive hospital floor. Please, he said, and his voice cracked like a teenager's. Please, Frank, I'm begging you. I don't want to die. Not like this. Victoria gasped, perfectly timed, perfectly practiced. Michael turned away, his shoulders shaking. The whole scene felt like a performance, something rehearsed and staged for maximum impact. Or maybe for the camera Victoria was definitely holding. I looked down at my big brother, the man who'd built an empire on other people's backs, who'd stepped over family to climb his ladder, and I felt nothing, just empty, like looking at a stranger who happened to share my blood. Get up, I said quietly. Frank, get up. He struggled back to his feet, Michael rushing to help him. Back in bed, Richard's face had gone from yellow-gray to something closer to ash. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hand. I'm going to go home. I'm going to think about this. And if I decide to help you, it won't be because you drop to your knees like some kind of melodrama. It'll be on my terms. My conditions. You understand? Anything, Richard said quickly. Too quickly. Whatever you want. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Victoria? You can stop recording now. Whatever blackmail material you think you're getting, it won't help you. Her face flushed, but she didn't lower the phone. Dr. Chen was waiting outside, like she knew I'd need a moment. Mr. Morrison, are you all right? Peachy. I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. Doc, let me ask you something. You been doing this long? 20 years. You ever seen someone deserve to die? She was quiet for a long moment. I've seen people make choices that led to their conditions. I've seen family dynamics that make these decisions impossibly complex. But deserve? She shook her head. That's not for me to judge. Must be nice, having that kind of clarity. She touched my arm gently. Mr. Morrison, there's a coffee shop on the third floor. It's quiet. If you need to talk to someone who understands complicated family medical situations, that look was back in her eyes, that knowing look. Maybe later, Doc. Right now I need to get home. But home wasn't where I went. Instead, I drove to Sarah's law office in downtown Akron. My daughter, the one who'd fought her way through law school, waiting tables and taking out loans we'd never pay off, because her uncle couldn't spare a dime for family. She was working late, like always. When she saw me in her doorway, her face immediately creased with worry. Dad, what's wrong? I need you to do something for me. That legal research you're always talking about. Can you look up medical records? Old ones? Depends. Public records? Insurance claims? Hospital admissions? Some of that's accessible. Why, your mother's medical records, from 2009. Sarah went very still. Dad, I need to know exactly what she died from, Sarah. The real cause. Not what they told us, but what the records actually say. Why now, after all these years? Because Richard's dying, and he wants my kidney. And before I make any decisions, I need to know the truth about what happened to your mother. Sarah was already pulling up databases on her computer. Give me 48 hours. I'll find everything. 2 days later, she called me to come back to her office. The sun was setting over Akron, painting everything gold and red, making the city look almost beautiful. Sarah had papers spread across her desk, printouts and photocopies and official-looking documents. Dad, you need to sit down for this. I stayed standing. Just tell me. Mom didn't die from cancer complications. Sarah's voice was steady, lawyer mode, but her eyes were filling with tears. She died from end-stage renal disease. Kidney failure. She was on the transplant list. My legs gave out then. I found the chair, fell into it, but they told us the cancer. She had cancer, yes, but she recovered from that in 2007. The chemo damaged her kidneys. By 2009, she needed a transplant. Sarah pulled out another document. She was number 3 on the list, Dad. Number 3. She should have gotten a kidney. What happened? That's where it gets strange. In April of 2009, her position changed. She went from number 3 to number 47. No explanation in the records. Just suddenly dropped down the list. Someone bumped her. That's not supposed to be possible. The list is based on medical need, tissue matching, time waiting. You can't just buy your way up. Sarah pulled out one more paper. But there's this. Same day Mom got bumped down. A Senator James Thompson received a kidney transplant at Cleveland Clinic. He wasn't even from Ohio. And the donor? Anonymous. Paid for by a private foundation. What foundation? Sarah looked at me, her face pale. The Morrison Family Foundation. Richard's Charitable Trust. The room spun for a moment. I gripped the desk, felt the wood grain under my fingers, real and solid while everything else tilted. Richard had killed Mary, not with a gun or a knife, but with money and influence. He'd bought someone else's life with my wife's death. Dad? Sarah's hand covered mine. What are you going to do? I stood up, steady now. Steady for the first time in years, maybe. The tremor in my hand had stopped, replaced by something else. Purpose. Cold, clear purpose. I'm going to make a deal with your uncle. Dad, no! We should go to the police, to the media. With what? Circumstantial evidence from 15 years ago, against Richard Morrison and his army of lawyers? I shook my head. No, Sarah. Richard wants my kidney? Fine. But he's going to pay for it. Every penny of what he cost us. Every moment of pain. Every tear you and your brother and sister shed at your mother's funeral. I pulled out a legal pad from Sarah's desk, started writing. Numbers. Dates. Every time I'd asked Richard for help. Every denial. Every door slammed in our faces. Dad, what are you doing? Calculating interest, I said, writing faster now. 30 years of compound interest on betrayal. The number at the bottom of the page, when I finally stopped calculating, was $3.2 million. That's insane, Sarah whispered. He'll never agree to that. Oh, he will. I folded the paper, put it in my pocket, because Richard Morrison wants to live more than he's ever wanted anything, and I'm his only chance. This is extortion. No, counselor. It's negotiation. Business. Something Richard should understand perfectly. I drove back to Cleveland that night. The clinic was quieter after visiting hours, but they let me in when I said I was Richard's brother, there about the transplant. Richard was alone. Victoria had gone home, probably to count her future inheritance. Michael was nowhere to be seen, just Richard and his machines and the view of the lake at night. Frank? He struggled to sit up. You came back. I did. I pulled out the paper. And I've made a decision. You'll do it? The hope in his voice was almost painful to hear. Almost, for $3.2 million. The room went silent except for the dialysis machines humming. I'm sorry, what? 3.2 million. That's my price. I unfolded the paper, set it on his bed. Every loan you denied, every request for help you ignored, every time you turned your back on family. It's all there, itemized with interest. You're insane. No, I'm a businessman. Supply and demand, right? You used to lecture me about that. Well, I've got the supply, the only kidney that can save your life, and you've got the demand, about 3 months' worth before your body shuts down completely. But I was already walking out. Behind me, I could hear Richard calling my name, his voice getting more desperate with each repetition. For the first time in 30 years, Richard Morrison needed something from me, and for the first time in 30 years, I had the power to say no, or to name my price. The game, as they say in Richard's world, was officially on. Richard didn't take rejection well, never had, never would, so when Victoria called me 2 days later, her voice dripping honey and venom, I knew my brother was making his move. Frank, darling, Richard would like to reconsider your proposal. Can you come to the house tonight? Tell him to transfer the money first. Oh, Frank, she laughed, that practice society laugh that meant nothing. You know Richard, he likes to do business face to face. I should have known then, should have heard the trap closing. But part of me wanted to see him squirm, wanted to watch the great Richard Morrison negotiate for his life. The Hunting Valley mansion looked exactly like Richard himself, impressive on the outside, probably rotting somewhere underneath. 15,000 square feet of ego built with brick and marble. The driveway alone was longer than my entire street. Victoria met me at the door wearing something that probably cost more than my truck. He's in the study. But first, there's someone he wanted you to meet. The study door was already open. Richard sat behind his massive desk, looking worse than he had in the hospital. The home dialysis machine next to him hummed quietly, doing the work his kidneys couldn't, but it wasn't Richard that made me stop cold in the doorway. It was the man sitting across from him. 6'4", maybe 260, with shoulders that strained his expensive suit, pale skin, pale eyes, and scars on his knuckles that told stories about problems solved with violence. Eastern European, Russian maybe, with that particular kind of stillness that meant danger. Frank, Richard wheezed, meet Marcus Volkov, an old business associate. Volkov stood, extended a hand that could probably crush walnuts. Mr. Morrison, I hear you have something your brother needs. His accent was thick, Moscow maybe, or somewhere darker. I didn't shake his hand. What's this about, Richard? Insurance, Richard said simply. Marcus here specializes in medical logistics. Organ trafficking, I corrected. That's the word you're avoiding. Volkov smiled, showing teeth that were too white, too perfect. Such ugly terms. I prefer to think of it as resource redistribution, like your brother's business moving assets from one place to another. Get to the point. Richard leaned forward, his hands shaking slightly. Marcus has made me an interesting offer, Frank. $5 million for a kidney. Any kidney. No questions asked, no paperwork needed. From where? Does it matter? Volkov shrugged. Eastern Europe, South America, Asia. The world is full of spare parts, Mr. Morrison. People who need money more than they need 2 kidneys. Or people who don't get a choice. Choice is luxury, Volkov said. But I'm not here to philosophize. I'm here because your brother asked for alternatives. You want 3.2 million? Someone else will take much less. Maybe nothing at all. The threat hung in the air like cigarette smoke. I looked at Richard, really looked at him. You're actually considering this? Buying some poor bastard's kidney from the black market? I'm considering all options. Richard's voice had that cold edge I remembered from childhood, when he'd decided something and didn't care who got hurt. But you see, Frank, Marcus reminded me of something. We have history, he and I. Old favors, old debts. Volkov's smile got wider. 29 years ago, your brother had problem. Man named Carlos Delgado, Mexican businessman who was becoming inconvenient. I made problem go away. But favor like that, it carries interest. Like your little calculation. Yes? Delgado? The name meant nothing to me, but Richard's face went even grayer. Now, Volkov continued, your brother can pay cash, 5 million. Very reasonable. Or, he paused, studying me like I was meat in a butcher shop. He can pay with favor, and favor I need is simple. Kidney for kidney. Your brother gets yours, willing or not, and debt is settled. You're talking about assault, kidnapping. I'm talking about business. Volkov pulled out a card, slid it across the desk toward me. You have good garage, Mr. Morrison, good reputation, honest mechanic, everyone says. Be shame if something happened. Fire maybe, or accident with lift. These things happen in dangerous profession like yours. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining situation. He stood, buttoned his suit jacket. Your brother, he's practical, man. He knows sometimes you must take what you need to survive. The question is, will you give, or will he take? Volkov left without another word, Victoria trailing after him like a well-trained dog. Richard and I sat in silence, the dialysis machine clicking between us. You brought the Russian mob into this? I finally asked. I brought options. That's what I do, Frank. I create options. By threatening me? My family? I'm dying. Richard slammed his hand on the desk, then winced at the effort. Do you understand that? I'm dying, and you're playing games with your little invoice. Well, two can play games, Frank. You want to be paid? Fine, but if you don't take my money, Volkov will handle things his way, and then you'll owe him. I already owe him, have for 29 years. Richard's eyes were desperate now, all pretense gone. He helped me once, and I've been paying ever since. Little favors, looking the other way, cleaning money through developments. But this would clear it all. One kidney, and I'm free of him. So you're willing to let him cut it out of me? I'm willing to live, Richard said simply. The question is, are you willing to let me die? I left without answering. But as I drove home, I kept checking the mirrors, wondering if Volkov's people were already following me. They were. The attack came 3 nights later. I was working late in the garage, finishing up a transmission rebuild. Tommy had gone home an hour earlier. I'd insisted, said I wanted to finish alone. The radio was playing classic rock, and I was deep in the work, trying to forget about Richard and kidneys and Russian mobsters. The first sign of trouble was when the music cut out. Then the lights. I grabbed a wrench, moved toward the breaker box, but they were already inside, 3 of them, moving fast through the dark. I swung at the first shadow, connected with something solid. A grunt, a curse in Russian. The second one hit me from the side, sent me sprawling into a tool chest. Tools scattered, clanging on concrete. I rolled, came up with a crowbar, caught someone in the knee. They went down screaming, but the third one had a taser. The electricity hit me like a sledgehammer, every muscle locking up. I went down hard, crowbar clattering away. They were on me immediately, one sitting on my chest, another grabbing my arms. Sorry, Mr. Morrison, the one on my chest said in accented English. Is only business. I saw the syringe in his hand, knew if that needle went in, I'd wake up missing a kidney, or not wake up at all. That's when Tommy came through the door like a wrecking ball. My son had inherited the Morrison-size 6'2", 200 pounds of mechanic muscle. He took the first guy down with a tire iron to the skull. The second one turned, pulled a knife, but Tommy had reach and rage on his side. The tire iron caught the knife hand, sent the blade spinning. The one with the syringe tried to stick me anyway, but I got my hand up, caught his wrist. We wrestled for it, the needle inches from my neck. Tommy ended it with a boot to the attacker's head. 3 Russians down, groaning on my garage floor. Tommy helped me up, both of us breathing hard. You okay, Dad? Yeah, I wasn't, but that could wait. How did you know? Saw them cut the power line from down the street. Called 911, but figured you couldn't wait. Sirens were already approaching. I knelt next to the one who'd held the syringe, pulled up his sleeve. There it was, the 8-pointed star tattoo of the Bratva, the Russian mafia. This is what Uncle Richard brought to our door, Tommy said, disgust thick in his voice. His friends. The police took statements, arrested the 3 Russians, but we all knew they'd be out on bail within hours, and there would be more. Volkov had made his point. He could reach me whenever he wanted. The next morning, Dr. Chen called. Mr. Morrison, we need to talk. Not on the phone. Can you meet me? We met at a small Vietnamese restaurant in Akron, the kind of place where nobody paid attention to who was talking to who. Dr. Chen looked tired, older than when I'd first met her. They came for you, she said. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Because I know Marcus Volkov. Or rather, I knew his predecessor. She stirred her foe, not eating. 20 years ago, when I was a resident, I worked under Dr. Heinrich Weber. Brilliant surgeon, everyone said. Pioneer in transplant medicine. I idolized him. He died 10 years ago. Car accident, they said. But before he died, he told me things. Things he'd done. People he'd let die so others could live. People who paid to move up lists, to get organs that weren't meant for them. My hand tightened on my water glass. Mary. I didn't know her name until I saw your face in the hospital. You look like your son, Michael. He brought her in once, years ago, when you couldn't make it. I was the attending resident. I remember her because she was so kind, even dying. She gave me this. Dr. Chen pulled out a small cross on a chain. I recognized it immediately. Mary's communion cross, the one she never took off. She said she wanted someone who helped people to have it. She died 2 days later. Dr. Chen's eyes were wet. Dr. Weber signed the papers that moved her down the list. Richard Morrison paid him $500,000 to save a senator instead. You have proof? It's in Richard's safe, in his house. Weber kept copies of everything, insurance against your brother. When Weber died, his lawyer sent them to Richard with a note. Your secrets die with me, but the paper remembers. Richard kept them. Men like him always keep leverage, even on the dead. Why are you telling me this? Because I became a doctor to save lives, not to be part of this machine that decides who lives based on wealth. She pulled out a key card. This gets you into the service entrance of Cleveland Clinic. Richard's having dialysis there tomorrow at 2 p.m. Victoria always leaves for exactly 90 minutes. Spa appointment. The house will be empty except for staff, and they take break at 2:30. You're helping me break into my brother's house? I'm giving you the chance to find the truth. What you do with it is your choice. She stood to leave, then stopped. Mr. Morrison, there's something else. The tremor in your hand? It's not Parkinson's. What? I ran some tests on your blood sample from the compatibility screening. You're being poisoned. Slowly, carefully, but definitely poisoned. Someone's been putting heavy metals in something you consume regularly. 6 months, maybe longer. The coffee. Richard's assistant had been bringing me coffee every week for 6 months, ever since she started checking in on behalf of the family. Free coffee from an expensive shop I could never afford. Son of a bitch has been poisoning me, making you weak, making you desperate, making you more likely to need money badly enough to give him what he wants. Dr. Chen handed me a bottle of pills. Chelation therapy. It'll clear the metals from your system, but it'll take weeks. As she left, one more person walked into the restaurant. A young woman, maybe 19, with long black hair and features that looked oddly familiar. She was pale, sweating, clearly sick. She walked straight to my table and collapsed into the chair across from me. Mr. Morrison? Frank Morrison? Who's asking? My name is Isabella Delgado. She pulled out a photograph. Richard, 20 years younger, with a beautiful Mexican woman. Richard Morrison is my father, and I'm dying. I looked at this girl, this child really, and saw Richard's eyes in a stranger's face. What do you want from me? I need a kidney, Mr. Morrison. And the test results? She slid a paper across the table. I'm 98% compatible with you, but 0% with my father. The irony was perfect. Richard's own daughter, the one he'd abandoned, couldn't use his kidney, but she could use mine. Why should I care? Because I'm not him, Isabella said simply. I'm not my father. I never knew he existed until 6 months ago when my mother died. She told me his name on her deathbed. I came here looking for family, for help, and he turned you away. He said I was lying, said I was just after money, had security throw me out. She pulled up her sleeve, showed the dialysis port. I've been living in a shelter, getting treatment at free clinics. Dr. Chen found me, ran the tests. She said you were my only hope. Dr. Chen seems to be playing a lot of angles. She's trying to save lives, real lives, not just the ones that can pay. Isabella leaned forward, and I could see how sick she really was. I know what my father did to your wife, Dr. Chen told me. I know you hate him, but I'm not asking for him. I'm asking for me, and I'm asking you to choose. Save the man who killed your wife, or save the daughter he abandoned. The moral weight of it settled on my shoulders like concrete. 2 people dying, 1 kidney. One was my brother who'd betrayed everything family was supposed to mean. The other was an innocent girl whose only crime was being born to the wrong father. When do you need to know? Soon. I have maybe 6 weeks left. Less if things get worse. Isabella left her contact information and stumbled back out into the rain that had started falling. I sat there staring at the test results. 98% compatible, higher than Richard's match. My phone rang. Richard. Frank, I heard about last night. I'm sorry. Volkov acted without my permission. Bullshit. I swear I didn't save it, Richard. Your Russian friend made his point. But here's mine. You come at me or my family again, and I'll let you die. Slowly, painfully. And I'll watch. I'm trying to live, Frank. Can't you understand that? Yeah, I understand. Question is, whose life is worth more? Yours or your daughter's? The silence on the other end stretched for long seconds. I don't have a daughter. Isabella Delgado says different. 98% match to me, 0 to you. Funny how genetics works, isn't it? That girl is a con artist. That girl is dying, Richard. Just like you. And right now I'm trying to decide which one of you deserves to live. I hung up before he could answer. The game had changed. Richard had shown he was willing to use violence, to poison me, to do whatever it took to survive. But now there was a new player, an innocent who needed what I had to give. The question was, could I let them both die? Or would I have to choose who lived and who paid for Richard's lifetime of sins? The Russian mob, poisoned coffee, a dying girl who shared my brother's blood but not his cruelty. The pressure was building from all sides now. And somewhere in Cleveland, Richard Morrison was learning what it felt like when the tables turned, when the power shifted, when survival became a bidding war he might not win. The first pinch had been applied. Time to see how he'd respond when squeezed harder. The next afternoon at exactly 2:15, Michael and I stood in Richard's marble-tiled kitchen. The house was quiet, just like Dr. Chen had promised. Victoria was at her spa, the staff on their break. We had maybe 30 minutes. I can't believe I'm doing this, Michael muttered, pulling on latex gloves. Breaking into my own father's house. Your father brought this on himself. I checked my watch. The safe's in his study, behind the oil painting of grandfather. He thinks he's clever. We moved through the house like thieves, which I guess we were. Everything in Richard's world was expensive and cold. Marble statues that cost more than college tuition. Paintings that belonged in museums. Furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. This wasn't a home. It was a monument to wealth. The study door was locked, but Michael had a key. He gave it to me last year. Said I'd need it when he died. He laughed bitterly. Guess he didn't see this coming. The oil painting of our father swung open on hidden hinges, revealing a wall safe that looked like it could survive a nuclear blast. Michael started entering numbers on the digital keypad. You know the combination? My father uses the same numbers for everything. The date Morrison Development was incorporated. The lock clicked. He's predictable that way. Inside the safe was Richard's real treasure. Not money, he kept that in banks, but secrets. Files, photographs, USB drives, all labeled with dates going back 30 years. Michael started pulling things out, handing them to me. Medical files from 2009, he read. Delgado Matter, 1995. Daniel commitment papers. He stopped, looked at me. Commitment papers? Keep going. We'll look at everything later. But the universe had other plans. We'd been inside maybe 10 minutes when we heard the front door open. Footsteps? Victoria's voice, talking on the phone. Shit, Michael whispered. She's back early. The window? 3-story drop onto concrete. Victoria's heels clicked closer down the hallway. We grabbed what we could. 3 files, 2 USB drives, a manila envelope marked Daniel, and Michael shoved everything into a laptop bag. The safe wouldn't close properly. The painting hung crooked, but there was no time. The bathroom, Michael hissed, through the connecting door. We slipped through just as the study door handle turned. I could hear Victoria enter, talking to someone about mineral water and calories. We held our breath in the bathroom, waiting. Finally, her footsteps retreated upstairs. Service elevator, Michael whispered. Kitchen. Now. We made it out through the garage, my truck parked 3 blocks away where I'd left it. My hands were shaking as I drove. Not from the tremor this time, but from adrenaline. Michael sat silent beside me, the laptop bag clutched in his arms like evidence in a murder trial. Which, as it turned out, it basically was. Back at Sarah's law office, we spread everything on her conference table. Sarah locked the door, pulled the blinds. The 3 of us stood there, looking at the evidence of Richard Morrison's real legacy. Play the USB, I said. The red one. Sarah plugged it into her laptop. An audio file popped up, dated April 3rd, 2009. Richard's voice filled the room, younger but unmistakably him. Dr. Weber, I need a favor, the kind you specialize in. Another voice, older, German accent. Mr. Morrison, we've discussed this. The waiting list is federally regulated. I cannot simply $500,000, cash, untraceable. A pause, then Weber. Which patient needs to be moved up? Senator James Thompson. He's currently number 48. That would require moving several patients down, including, let me see, Mary Morrison. Your sister-in-law, I'm aware. She's number 3, Mr. Morrison. She's critical. Moving her down would likely, I said I'm aware. Can you do it or not for 500,000? Yes. But you understand, she will likely die before, that's not your concern. Just make it happen. The recording ended. Sarah had tears streaming down her face. Michael looked like he might vomit. And me, I felt something inside me turn from ice to fire. He knew, Sarah whispered. He knew Mom would die. He paid for her to die, I corrected. He traded her life for political favor. Michael grabbed another file, ripped it open. Inside were bank transfers, medical records, and a note in Richard's handwriting. Thompson elected. Favorable zoning approved. Mary Morrison deceased July 15. Acceptable outcome. Acceptable outcome. My wife's death was an acceptable outcome. There's more, Michael said, opening the manila envelope marked Daniel. His hands trembled as he pulled out commitment papers for Riverside Psychiatric Hospital, dated June 20th, 1999. Voluntary commitment for Daniel Morrison, signed by Frank Morrison. I grabbed the papers. There was my signature, but I'd never signed anything like this. That's not my handwriting. It's close, but, Dad, Sarah pointed to another document. Death certificate for Daniel Morrison, June 15th, 1999. 5 days before the commitment papers. How can he be dead and committed to a psychiatric hospital? Michael found another paper. A medical report. Patient Daniel Morrison, scheduled for experimental frontal lobe surgery, June 25th, 1999. Purpose: complete personality reconstruction following violent psychotic break. Lobotomy, Sarah breathed. They gave him a lobotomy, but the last page was the worst. A discharge report, dated October 1999. Patient escaped during transfer. Presumed drowned in Cuyahoga River. Body never recovered. Case closed per request of Richard Morrison, legal guardian. Legal guardian. I stood up so fast the chair fell over. I never signed guardianship papers. Daniel was 27 years old. Unless, Sarah said slowly, he was declared mentally incompetent. With these forged commitment papers, Richard became his guardian by default. The pieces clicked together in my mind. Daniel hadn't died in a car accident. Richard had him committed. Probably tried to have him lobotomized to keep him quiet about something. And Daniel had escaped. The funeral, the closed casket, the nervous funeral director, all of it was Richard covering up what he'd done. Why? Why would my father do this to his own brother? I picked up the file marked Delgado, 1995. Inside were photographs. Richard with a Mexican man I didn't recognize. The same man lying in what looked like a warehouse, clearly dead, and a receipt for cleaning services from Volkov International, dated the day after the photos were taken. Because Daniel saw Richard kill someone, I said. Carlos Delgado, Isabella's father. Michael sank into a chair. My father is a murderer. Your father is worse than that. He's a murderer who destroyed his own family to cover it up. I gathered the evidence, the USB drives, everything. Sarah, make copies of all of this. Multiple copies. Michael, you need to decide right now. Are you with him or with us? Uncle Frank, there's no middle ground anymore. Your father killed my wife. He destroyed Daniel. He's been poisoning me. He sent Russian mobsters after me. So I need to know, where do you stand? Michael looked at the evidence spread across the table. Photos of dead men, forged signatures, medical files that documented the murder of my Mary as clearly as if Richard had pulled a trigger. I stand with family, Michael said quietly. Real family. The kind that doesn't kill each other for money. Good. I turned to both of them. Because we're going to war. Not the kind Richard's been fighting. With money and threats and hired thugs. We're going to destroy him completely. Legally. Publicly. Permanently. How? Sarah asked. First, we protect ourselves. Isabella needs somewhere safe to stay. Richard or Volkov might go after her. Dr. Chen, too. We bring them both here. Keep them close. Then, we use Richard's own weapons against him. He wants my kidney? Fine. But the price just went up. It's not about money anymore. It's about justice. I pulled out my phone. Dialed Richard's number. He answered on the first ring. Frank? Have you reconsidered? Oh, I've reconsidered, all right. The deal's changed, Richard. I told you, 3.2 million is... I don't want your money anymore. I want the truth. Public confession. Everything you've done, Mary, Daniel, Delgado, all of it, on record, on video. And you turn yourself in to the police. Richard laughed, but it sounded forced. You're insane. No, I'm informed. See, Michael and I just had an interesting afternoon at your house. Found some fascinating things in your safe. Silence. Then very quietly, Michael's with you? Your son chose family over a murderer. Smart kid. You have no idea what you're playing with, Frank. The people involved, the connections. Volkov? Senator Thompson? Yeah, I know all about them. Question is, do they know about each other? Do they know you kept evidence that could destroy them? You wouldn't try me. You've got 48 hours to decide. Confess and face justice, or I release everything. Your choice. If you do this, we both die. You understand that? Volkov doesn't leave witnesses. Then you better make sure he knows you're keeping your mouth shut. 48 hours, Richard. I hung up. Sarah and Michael were staring at me. You just declared war on the Russian mob, Michael said. No, I declared war on my brother. The mob's just collateral damage. I stood, felt the weight of 25 years lifting off my shoulders. Sarah, call Emma and Tommy. Tell them to come here. Bring overnight bags. Michael, get Isabella and Dr. Chen. We're consolidating our forces. What are you going to do? Sarah asked. I'm going to find out if Daniel's really dead. Because if he escaped that psychiatric hospital, if he's out there somewhere, then Richard's been lying about one more thing, and maybe, just maybe, there's one more Morrison who wants justice as much as I do. The victim was done being victimized. The prey had become the predator, and Richard Morrison, who'd spent 30 years thinking he was untouchable, was about to learn what it felt like when the foundations of his empire started to crack. The war for the Morrison family soul had begun, and I was going to win it, or die trying. Probably literally, given Volkov's involvement. But for the first time since Mary died, I had a reason to fight that was bigger than survival. I had the truth, and the truth, as they say, will set you free, or get you killed. Either way, Richard Morrison was going to pay for what he'd done. The shift was complete. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was attacking, and Richard, for all his money and power and connections, wasn't ready for Frank Morrison unleashed. Game on, big brother. Game fucking on. The call came at 3 in the morning, unknown number, but I knew who it would be before I answered. Mr. Morrison. Volkov's voice was calm, like he was ordering coffee instead of destroying my life. I have your son and younger daughter. They are safe, for now. My blood turned to ice. If you hurt them, please, no threats, is beneath us both. Tommy and Emma are enjoying my hospitality. Good kids. Tommy has your stubbornness. Emma, she has your wife's eyes. No? What do you want? Simple. You come to address, I text you. Alone, we do surgery tonight. Clean, professional. You wake up with one kidney. Your children go home. Everyone lives. You have 24 hours to decide. That's kidnapping. Murder is business transaction. Your kidney for your children's lives. Very straightforward. The line went dead. A text came through immediately. An address in the warehouse district. The same area where Richard had killed Carlos Delgado all those years ago. I called Tommy's phone. Straight to voicemail. Emma's too. Sarah answered on the first ring. Dad, it's 3 in the morning. Volkov has Tommy and Emma. What? How? Doesn't matter how. He wants me to come alone. Let him take my kidney. Or, I couldn't finish the sentence. We're calling the police. With what evidence? A phone call from a blocked number? Volkov owns half the cops in Cleveland anyway. No, Sarah. This is exactly what Richard wanted. Maximum pressure. Dad, you can't seriously be thinking about. Get Michael. Get to my house now. And Sarah, bring your gun. 20 minutes later, we were gathered in my kitchen. Sarah, Michael, Dr. Chen, and Isabella, who looked worse than ever, dark circles under her eyes, skin taking on that yellow tinge that meant her kidneys were shutting down faster. We have less than 24 hours, I said. Ideas? Pay Volkov, Michael suggested, whatever he wants. He doesn't want money. He wants to clear Richard's debt. Then we give him Richard, Sarah said coldly. Trade him for Tommy and Emma. Volkov won't take that deal. Richard's no good to him dead. Dr. Chen had been quiet, checking my pulse, looking at my eyes with a penlight. Frank, we need to talk about your condition. Later? No, now. She pulled out a tablet, showed me test results. The poisoning has accelerated. Your liver function is declining. Your kidneys are stressed. If you have surgery now in this condition, there's a 40% chance you won't survive. 40%, and that's with proper medical care. With Volkov's black market surgeons, maybe 20% survival rate, maybe less. The room went quiet. 20% chance of living if I saved my kids. 100% chance they'd die if I didn't. Then we need another option, Michael said. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my father. Michael, no, but he was already dialing. Richard answered immediately. He must have been waiting. Son, thank God. Are you all right? No thanks to you. Michael's voice was ice. Volkov has Tommy and Emma. I heard. Unfortunate. But Frank brought this on himself. Stop. Just stop. Michael put the phone on speaker. Make the call. Tell Volkov to let them go. I can't do that. Marcus doesn't take orders from me. If anything, it's the other way around. Then what good are you? Michael shouted. What good is all your money and power if you can't even... I can offer an alternative, Richard interrupted. A solution that saves everyone. We all looked at each other. Sarah mouthed trap at me. I'm listening, I said. Isabella. Richard's voice was smooth now, calculated. Lovely girl. My daughter apparently, though I had my doubts until the DNA test came back yesterday. Isabella's head snapped up. He tested me. Of course he did, I muttered. Richard continued. She needs a kidney. You're a match for her, Frank. So here's my proposal. You save Isabella, my daughter, your niece, technically, and I'll pay Volkov his $5 million. He releases Tommy and Emma. Everyone lives. Except you, Sarah pointed out. Except me. Yes, but that's my problem, isn't it? It was too neat, too clean. Richard never made offers that didn't benefit him somehow. What's the catch? I asked. No catch. Save my daughter and I'll save your children. Simple trade. Isabella was shaking her head. No, no, I won't be used as a bargaining chip. Not by him. You don't have a choice, my dear. Richard's voice hardened. You're dying. Frank's dying. His children are in danger. I'm offering a solution where most of us survive. Most of us, Michael repeated. But not you. I've made my peace with that. Bullshit. Richard Morrison had never made peace with anything in his life. But before I could call him on it, my legs gave out. The tremor that had been in my hand spread up my arm through my chest. I hit the kitchen floor hard, my whole body convulsing. Dr. Chen was beside me immediately, checking my pupils, my pulse. He's seizing. The heavy metals are affecting his nervous system. Sarah knelt beside me, tears streaming. Dad, hold on. The seizure passed, but I felt weak, drained, like my body was eating itself from the inside. Dr. Chen helped me to a chair, pulled out a syringe. This will help temporarily, but Frank, we need to get you to a hospital. No hospitals, they'll find me there, then you'll die. I'll die anyway if I don't get my kids back. Dr. Chen injected something into my arm. The tremors eased slightly, but I could feel them waiting just beneath the surface, ready to take over again. Michael was still on the phone with his father. You did this, he said quietly. You've been poisoning him. Don't be dramatic. Victoria brings him coffee every week. Has for 6 months. The same 6 months he's been getting sick. Silence from Richard's end. You poisoned him to make him weak, to make him desperate. You're killing your own brother to save yourself. I'm dying too, Richard exploded. We're all dying, Michael. The only question is who dies first. Isabella stood up, swaying slightly. She looked at me, then at the phone. I'll do it. Isabella, no, I'll take the kidney. Her voice was stronger now. But I have conditions. Richard laughed. You're in no position to make demands. Neither are you, she shot back. And for a moment I could see Richard in her, that iron will, that refusal to bend. You want me to take Frank's kidney? You want me to be the reason he might die? Fine, but you're going to pay for it. I already said I'd pay Volkov, not money. Truth. Isabella pulled out her phone, started recording. You're going to confess. Everything. Mary Morrison's death. Daniel's disappearance. My father's murder. All of it, on video, right now. That's insane, that's the price, Isabella said. Your confession for your daughter's life. And Frank's children. Sarah looked at me. Michael stared at Isabella with something like awe. Even Dr. Chen seemed shocked by the girl's steel. You have 10 seconds to decide, Isabella continued. Or I refuse the kidney and we all die. Your choice, father. The word father dripped with enough venom to kill. Richard's breathing was audible through the phone. Heavy, labored, desperate. If I confess, Volkov will kill me. Then you better disappear after you make the call to save Tommy and Emma. I'm too sick to run. That's your problem, Isabella echoed his earlier words. 10 seconds. This is blackmail. 5 seconds. Isabella, please. 3. All right, Richard's voice cracked. All right, I'll do it. I'll confess. Isabella held her phone steady. Start talking. And he did. For 20 minutes, Richard Morrison confessed to everything. Paying to have Mary killed. Having Daniel committed and lobotomized. Murdering Carlos Delgado. Working with Volkov for 29 years. The poisoning. Everything. When he finished, he sounded broken. There, you have what you want. Now will you take the kidney? Isabella looked at me. It's your choice, Frank. I won't take it unless you agree. I thought about Tommy and Emma. Probably terrified. Probably hurt. Thought about Mary, dying alone because Richard wanted political favors. Thought about Daniel, somewhere out there if he was even still alive. Brain scrambled by Richard's cruelty. Yes, I said. Save my kids and Isabella gets the kidney. I'll call Volkov, Richard wheezed. Give me an hour. The line went dead. Dr. Chen checked my vitals again. Frank, even if Volkov releases them, you're in no condition for surgery. The poisoning, the seizures, your body can't handle it. Then we better figure out how to make it handle it. There might be a way, she said slowly. Experimental, dangerous, but it could clear enough of the toxins to give you a fighting chance. Do it, Frank, do it. She nodded, started making calls to the hospital, arranging things. Isabella sat beside me, took my hand with her small, cold one. I'm sorry. she whispered. I'm sorry you have to choose between your life and mine. I'm not choosing between lives, I told her. I'm choosing to end Richard's game once and for all. But even as I said it, I knew the truth. We were surrounded. Tommy and Emma in Volkov's hands. Me poisoned and dying. Isabel dazed from kidney failure. Richard playing everyone against each other like chess pieces. The walls were closing in. Every option led to someone dying. And somewhere in Cleveland, my brother was probably smiling, knowing he'd won even if he lost. Maximum pressure achieved. The darkest hour before whatever dawn might come, if any of us lived to see it. The garage was dark when I heard the door creak open. 3 a.m., still waiting for word about Tommy and Emma, still fighting the poison in my system. I grabbed a wrench, ready for another attack from Volkov's men. Put it down, Frank, it's just me. That voice, I knew that voice, but it was impossible. The figure stepped into the moonlight streaming through the window, and my legs nearly gave out again. Not from poison this time. From shock. The man standing in my garage had my father's nose, my mother's eyes, and 25 years of secrets written across his face. Older, scarred, different, but unmistakably him. Daniel, hello big brother. Daniel Morrison, my baby brother. The one we buried in an empty casket in 1999. Standing in my garage like a ghost made flesh. You're alive. How are you? Alive? Yeah, that surprises most people. He moved closer, and I could see the changes, the scar across his temple, the slight tremor in his left hand, not unlike mine, the gray in his hair that shouldn't be there at 52. Though technically, I've been John Williams for the last 25 years. Bitcoin entrepreneur, early adopter. Did pretty well for myself. Daniel, we buried you. You buried an empty box, Frank. Richard's greatest magic trick, making his brother disappear. Daniel pulled out a chair, sat down like he belonged there, like he hadn't been dead for a quarter century. I've been watching, all these years, watching you struggle, watching Mary die, watching Richard build his empire on our family's bones. Why didn't you come back? Why didn't you tell me? Because until recently, I didn't have what I needed to destroy him. But now, he pulled out a tablet, started swiping through files. Now I have everything, including this. The video was grainy, dated June 1990, a warehouse, security camera footage. Richard arguing with a Mexican man, Carlos Delgado, Isabella's father. The argument escalated. Richard pulled out a gun. The shot was silent in the footage, but Delgado dropped. Richard stood over him, fired 2 more times. Jesus Christ. I was there, Daniel said quietly, hidden in the rafters. I'd followed Richard because I knew he was into something bad. Saw the whole thing. When I confronted him the next day, he had Volkov grab me. The psychiatric hospital, the fake lobotomy, all of it. Richard's way of shutting me up permanently. How did you escape? Volkov's men got sloppy during a transfer. I jumped into the Cuyahoga River. Let them think I drowned. Had help from a janitor at the hospital who'd figured out I wasn't actually insane. He gave me money, fake ID, a chance to disappear. Daniel's eyes were hard now. I spent 5 years recovering, rebuilding. Then I got lucky with Bitcoin. Turned $1,000 into $1 million. Then 10 million. Then 100 million. 100 million? Give or take. Enough to buy things. Information. People. Debts. He smiled, and it was Richard's smile, but with actual warmth behind it. Did you know Volkov owes almost 50 million to various creditors? Gambling debts, bad investments, overextension. I've been buying them up for 3 years. As of yesterday, I own Marcus Volkov. My brain struggled to process this. You own the Russian mobster who kidnapped my kids. Technically, yes. Which means, he pulled out his phone, typed something. Your kids are being released right now. They'll be home within the hour. Just like that? Just like that, Volkov works for whoever holds his leash. Richard held it for 29 years. Now I do. The relief nearly knocked me over. Tommy and Emma safe. But then the full implications hit me. Richard doesn't know you're alive. No, he doesn't. He's been confessing to murdering me, actually, which is ironic. Daniel pulled up another video on his tablet. This is from 1995, the full recording, with audio. This time I could hear everything. Richard and Delgado arguing about money, drugs, a deal gone wrong, Delgado threatening to expose Richard's money laundering, Richard pulling the gun. No one threatens my family, Richard said in the video before pulling the trigger. Ironic last words, Daniel commented. Considering what he did to his actual family. Why are you showing me this now? Because Isabella Delgado is dying, and she's my niece in a way. Her father died because he threatened Richard. She doesn't deserve to die for Richard's sins. I'm giving her my kidney. No, you're not. Daniel rolled up his sleeve, showed me a medical bracelet. I'm type O negative, universal donor. I'm also a 96% match for Isabella. Tested yesterday. You've been planning this. For 10 years, Frank. Ever since I found out what Richard did to Mary. His voice softened. I was there, you know, at her funeral. In the back, hidden. I wanted to come to you so badly, but I didn't have enough power yet. Richard still could have destroyed you all. And now? Now I have everything. The evidence. The money. Volkov under my thumb. And something else. He pulled out a medical report. Dr. Chen isn't just any transplant specialist. She's been working on synthetic kidney technology. Partial biological, partial artificial. It's experimental, but it works. She can save Isabella with my kidney and create a hybrid solution for Richard using partial tissue from you if you choose to help him. Why would I help Richard after everything? Because you're not him, Daniel said simply. You're Frank Morrison, the brother who taught me to ride a bike, who stood up to bullies for me, who would never let someone die if you could save them, even Richard. He killed your life, Daniel. 25 years gone. And I spent those years becoming someone who could end him properly, not with a bullet, but with justice. Daniel stood, and for a moment I could see the young man he'd been, brilliant and idealistic. The question is, Frank, do we let him die like the animal he is, or do we save him so he can face real justice? Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway. She'd been listening. You knew, I said to her. You knew Daniel was alive. For 2 years, she admitted. He funded my research, helped me develop the synthetic technology, all leading to this moment. This was all planned? Not all, Daniel said. Richard getting sick was just karma. But once he did, yes, we've been maneuvering things, getting you tested, bringing Isabella forward, making sure all the pieces were in place. For what? For the complete destruction of Richard Morrison's empire and the rebuilding of the Morrison family legacy. Daniel pulled out a document. This is a confession. Everything Richard's done, prepared by Sarah from the evidence we collected. If he signs it, turns himself in, Dr. Chen will perform the experimental procedure, save his life so he can spend it in prison, and if he doesn't sign, then he dies in 3 days and we turn over the evidence anyway. But this way he has a chance to do one decent thing, save Isabella without killing you. My phone rang. Tommy's number. Dad? His voice was shaky but alive. We're okay, we're with Sarah. These men just let us go, said their boss changed his mind. Come home, I told him. Just come home safe. When I hung up, Daniel was watching me with Mary's eyes, my wife's kindness somehow surviving in my brother's face despite everything he'd been through. Richard's at the hospital, Dr. Chen said. Critical condition. He has maybe 6 hours to decide. Then let's go give him his options, Daniel said. He turned to Isabella, who'd been silent through everything. Your father was not a good man, but he didn't deserve to die like that. If you'll let me, I'd like to give you my kidney. Uncle to niece, family taking care of family, the way it should have been. Isabella nodded, tears streaming. And Richard, that's Frank's choice, Daniel said. He's the only one Richard ever truly wronged who can still forgive him. We drove to the hospital in Daniel's car. A Tesla, because of course the Bitcoin millionaire drove a Tesla. The sunrise was painting Cleveland gold and red, like the city was on fire, or maybe being reborn. You really have $100 million? I asked. Closer to 200, actually. Crypto's been good to me. And you're willing to give your kidney to the daughter of the man Richard murdered? Family sins shouldn't pass to children, Daniel said. Isabella's innocent. Plus, it's what Mary would do. Mary, even after 15 years, her ghost guided us. What happens after? I asked. After Richard confesses? After the surgeries? We rebuild, Daniel said simply. The Morrison family, but better. Clean money, clean consciences. The garage becomes a chain. Morrison Auto Care. Sarah's law firm expands. Michael takes over the legitimate parts of Richard's business. Isabella goes to medical school like she dreams. You've thought of everything. I've had 25 years to think, Frank. 25 years of being dead. I'd like to try being alive again, with my family. The hospital loomed ahead. Somewhere inside, Richard Morrison was dying, about to be offered a devil's bargain, confess to everything and live in prison, or die maintaining his innocence. He'll never sign, I said. He will, Daniel said confidently, because Richard's greatest fear isn't prison, it's being forgotten. In prison, he's still Richard Morrison, fallen titan. Dead, he's just another rich asshole who got what he deserved. He'll sign. How do you know? Daniel smiled, and for the first time in 25 years, I saw my little brother again. Because I know Richard better than anyone. I've been studying him, learning him, becoming his opposite. He created me in a way, the perfect anti-Richard. And now, he parked the car, turned to face me fully. Now the dead brother returns to offer salvation. The ultimate plot twist in Richard Morrison's tragedy. He'll sign Frank. His ego won't let him refuse the drama of it. The final piece was in place. The last key turned. Daniel Morrison had returned from the dead with the power to save everyone. Isabella, Richard, even me. All Richard had to do was something he'd never done in his life. Tell the truth. The game wasn't over. But for the first time, we were winning. Richard's hospital room felt smaller with all of us crowded inside. Me, Sarah, Michael, Dr. Chen, Isabella, and in the corner, recording everything on his phone, Daniel, the ghost made flesh. Richard looked between us, his eyes finally settling on Daniel. The heart monitor spiked, beeping frantically. No, Richard whispered. No, you're dead. I went to your funeral. You went to an empty casket, Daniel corrected, just like you planned, except I didn't stay buried. Richard's hands shook as he reached for the call button, probably for security, but Michael stepped forward and took it away. It's over, Dad. Time to face what you've done. This is impossible. You had a lobotomy, the doctors said. The doctors said what you paid them to say. Daniel moved closer, and Richard shrank back against his pillows. 25 years, Richard. 25 years I've been gone because you couldn't let me tell the truth about Carlos Delgado. I don't know what you're talking about. Daniel held up his tablet, played the video. Richard shooting Delgado. The sound of the gunshots echoed in the small room. Isabella made a small sound, seeing her father die for the first time. Richard's face went from yellow-gray to pure white. Where did you get that? I was there, in the rafters, watching my big brother commit murder. Daniel's voice was steady, controlled, and for 25 years I've been gathering everything. Every crime, every payoff, every body you buried. You have nothing that will hold up. I have everything, including Marcus Volkov, who's very eager to testify in exchange for immunity. Turns out he kept records too. Insurance, he called it. Victoria chose that moment to walk in, designer luggage in hand, passport visible in her purse. She stopped dead when she saw Daniel. Who the hell? The brother-in-law you never had, Daniel said pleasantly. Leaving town, Victoria? Richard's dying. There's no point staying. Especially since you've been slowly poisoning Frank for 6 months, Sarah added. We have the coffee tested. We have the purchase records for the thallium. We have everything. Victoria's perfectly composed face cracked. I don't know what you're talking about. The bank would disagree, Daniel said, pulling up something on his tablet. That $5 million you transferred from Richard's accounts an hour ago, that was my money. I've been managing Richard's hidden accounts for 3 years. Every penny you just stole is marked, traced, and frozen. Victoria lunged for the door, but 2 FBI agents were already there. Daniel had called them before we arrived. Victoria Morrison, you're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. As they led her away, she turned back to Richard. You said you loved me. I said a lot of things, Richard replied flatly. His empire was crumbling, and he couldn't even pretend to care about his trophy wife. When she was gone, Daniel set a document on Richard's bed. Your confession. Everything. Mary's murder. My attempted murder. Delgado. The money laundering. Sign it, and Dr. Chen performs the surgery that saves your life. So I can rot in prison? So you can live, I said, speaking for the first time. Which is more than you gave Mary. Richard looked at me, and for the first time in my life I saw tears in his eyes. Frank, I don't. Just don't. You killed my wife for a senator's favor. You destroyed Daniel's life to cover up a murder. You poisoned me to get my kidney. There's nothing you can say. Then why save me? Because I'm not you, and because Isabella needs that kidney, and Daniel's the better match for her. So you get to live, Richard. You get to live with what you've done. Richard picked up the pen. His hand shook as he signed page after page. Michael filmed it all, making sure every confession was captured. When it was done, Richard looked older than his 61 years. Broken. The surgery's in 2 hours, Dr. Chen announced. We need to prep now. The next 12 hours blurred together. 3 operating rooms, 4 surgical teams, and medical history being made. Daniel giving his kidney to Isabella, me giving partial kidney tissue to Richard, combined with Dr. Chen's synthetic prototype. The first successful biological artificial hybrid transplant. I went under thinking about Mary, wondering if she'd approve. When I woke up, Sarah was holding my hand, tears streaming down her face. It worked, she whispered. All 3 surgeries, everyone survived. Richard, in custody, chained to his bed but alive. Daniel, recovering next door. He's already making jokes about being down to 1 kidney, but up 1 family. Isabella? Perfect. The kidney took immediately. She's going to be fine, Dad. I tried to sit up, felt the pain in my side, but also felt something else. The tremor was gone, the poison finally clearing from my system. There's something else, Sarah said carefully. Something Daniel told me to tell you when you woke up. What? He said to tell you that he knows. That he's known all along. My heart skipped. Known what? That you knew he was alive. That you've known for 10 years. I closed my eyes. The secret I'd carried finally in the open. How? He said you started leaving things at his grave. Not flowers, car parts. Specific ones. Parts that spelled out messages in part numbers. He said only you would think to communicate through automotive inventory codes. I laughed, even though it hurt. When did I get so obvious? When you started planning this. Together. The long con, Daniel called it. Sarah squeezed my hand. The poisoning, Dad? You weren't just being poisoned. You were controlling the dose, building tolerance, making yourself look weak while staying just strong enough. It had to look real. Richard had to believe he was winning. You risked your life on a gamble that Daniel would come through. No, I bet my life on my brother. My real brother. The one Richard tried to kill. I opened my eyes, looked at my daughter. We couldn't move until we had everything, every piece of evidence, every witness, every angle covered. 10 years of planning, Sarah. 10 years of playing dead while gathering strength. Why didn't you tell me? Because you're a terrible liar, sweetheart. You get that from your mother. Richard would have seen it in your eyes. 2 days later, they brought Richard to the courthouse in chains. The media was everywhere. The fall of Richard Morrison was the story of the year. Murder, organ trafficking, conspiracy, attempted murder. 25 to life, no possibility of parole for 20 years. Before they took him away, he asked to see me. Against everyone's advice, I went. He looked smaller in the orange jumpsuit. Older, defeated. Was it worth it, he asked? Destroying everything for revenge? It wasn't revenge, it was justice, and I didn't destroy everything, just the parts built on blood. The company's gone, my reputation's gone, but your daughter lives. Isabella has your kidney. Well, Daniel's kidney, but she's your blood. She'll carry on the Morrison name, just not the Morrison legacy you built. Richard laughed bitterly. The Morrison name. What a joke. No, it's going to mean something again. Daniel, Michael, and I are starting the Morrison Foundation. Legitimate, clean, helping families who can't afford medical care. Everything you should have been. With what money? Daniel's money. Clean money. Honest money. Richard looked away. I received a letter from Isabella. Yeah, she's pregnant. Getting married to some teacher in Mexico. Said she's naming the baby Mary if it's a girl. His voice cracked. Mary Isabella Morrison. Mom would have liked that, I said, because our mother, not Mary my wife, though she would have liked it too. Frank? Richard called as I turned to leave. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter, but I'm sorry. I stopped at the door. I know you are, but sorry doesn't bring Mary back. It doesn't give Daniel back 25 years. It doesn't undo the poison in my blood. Then why save me? Because that's what makes us different, Richard. You would have let me die. I couldn't let you. I looked back one last time. Goodbye, Richard. 6 months later, we held a memorial service for Mary. Not a funeral. We'd done that 15 years ago. This was a celebration. Daniel stood beside me, both of us healed, both of us scarred. Isabella was there, showing now her husband's arm around her. Sarah, Tommy, Emma, Michael, the family Mary never got to see grown. Think she would have forgiven him? Daniel asked quietly. Mary? Probably. She was better than all of us. What about you? Do you forgive him? I thought about it. Richard in his cell, writing letters no one answered. The fortune gone, distributed to medical charities. The empire dissolved. The building sold. The name erased from Cleveland's skyline. No, I said finally, but I don't need to. He's not my problem anymore. He's just another prisoner, paying for his crimes. Daniel nodded. The garage is doing well, 12 locations now. Morrison Auto Care. Who would have thought? Frank Morrison would have thought. The brother who taught me that honest work beats dirty money every time. Isabella approached us, handed me an ultrasound photo. It's a girl. Mary Isabel Morrison. Due in spring. Spring! When Mary loved to plant flowers. When life returned after winter's death. She'll never know him, Isabella said about Richard. I won't let her. She'll know us, I promised. She'll know family. Real family. That evening, I found a letter in my mailbox. Richard's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Inside, just one line. You won. I crumpled it up, tossed it in the trash, because he was wrong. This wasn't about winning or losing. It was about justice, about family, about choosing who deserved salvation. The mechanic from Akron had brought down an empire. The dead brother had returned to deliver justice. The abandoned daughter had found a family. And Richard Morrison, who'd spent 30 years thinking he was untouchable, finally learned what it cost to value money over blood. I looked at my steady hands. No tremor, no poison, no fear. For the first time in 30 years, Frank Morrison was free. And Richard Morrison, he was exactly where he'd always been, alone with his choices, surrounded by the walls he'd built himself. The only difference was now those walls were made of concrete and steel instead of money and lies. Justice served, family restored, the reversal complete. Sometimes the good guys do win. It just takes 30 years of patience and a brother willing to play dead until the perfect moment to rise.